place where optimism most flourishes is the lunatic asylum.
If we cannot grow our economy by 3%, now I'm talking U.S. base for a second. If we cannot grow our economy by 3%, which is really hard, and this is what I've been telling the president and the administration, if we cannot grow at 3%, the deficits are going to overwhelm this country.
Larry Fink is a very powerful man, and you can see that the U.S. economy grew at 3.3% in the second quarter, and this is exactly what Larry Fink wanted. Most economists have learned that 2% is the sweet spot, and this is from John Maynard Keynes, and they're emulating the gold standard. So the 2% represents the 2% that you're able to mine out of the ground, and this is where they get the 2% for the monetary system. When I interviewed Andy Bustamante, I asked him about crypto being an olive branch of sorts, and his response was, Darren, you're assuming that the world wants peace, but they don't want peace. While looking for the origin and the reasoning for why they have a 2% GDP target, I stumbled upon this, a 2% GDP by NATO, and this is the benchmark for defense spending, where allies commit to investing at least 2% of their GDP in defense spending.
This are going to overwhelm this country. Now, both parties are guilty. In the year 2000, after our country had its 223rd anniversary, the U.S. deficit was $8 trillion. 25 years later, our deficit is at $36 trillion. $25 trillion more, 27. And it's only getting worse. But if we grow at 3% for the next 5-10 years, we'll, the debt to GDP would be manageable, and we'll be able to move forward. But the market does not appreciate that.
The debt is too high to GDP, and this is how hyperinflation occurs. It's a ratio. So how do you create more GDP without actually creating more debt? And this is where stablecoins come into play. They're going to mandate the private sector to purchase treasuries to back tokens, and with that, they're putting a floor underneath the bond market. You see, as bonds drop, yields rise. So they force buyers, and this pushes up the price of bonds. And eventually, what could happen is you could have negative interest rates or just even 0% interest rates will stimulate the U.S. economy. At the same time, the U.S. government doesn't have to pay the interest rate to the bondholders. Did you know your sensitive information is all over the internet? Your phone number, birth date, social security number? This information is readily available for anybody that wants to purchase it. The internet is surveilled, and information is collected and arranged by artificial intelligence and then resold to entities like financial institutions, health insurance, even law enforcement will purchase this data. Criminals will often buy this data from data brokerages and use it for their scams and cons. This is why I decided to work with Incogni. Incogni is a sponsor of this show. And what they do is they reach out to every data brokerage and ask them to remove your data from their database. Incogni works around the clock to ensure that data brokerages remove your data. And some will put up a fight, but Incogni knows what to say and how to leverage the law in your favor. Sit back and relax as Incogni takes care of everything. This process is completely automated, but if there is any questions, there's 24/7 support. Incogni is the first and only personal data removal service to be independently verified by Deloitte. Protect your identity and personal information from identity thieves using Incogni. Incogni.com/Darren. If you use this link, you'll get 60% off the annual plan plus a money-back guarantee. The link is in the description below.
But 20% of our U.S. Treasury are owned by foreigners. And a lot of the ownership is because of the position the U.S. has been, and if we become more an isolationist through tariffs, I truly believe the outcome will be less dollar ownership. If you also then juxtapose this whole concept that I said earlier, that I think more and more countries are focusing on their own domestic capital markets, which is great for BlackRock. You know, the thing we just raised $2 billion in India. We're starting that mortgage-backed securities business in Saudi Arabia. The opportunity to expand in the capital markets in every country means more domestic savings in these various countries are going to stay within country. And so the whole threat of having this 20% ownership of U.S. Treasuries by foreigners is going to be threatened.
BlackRock gives advice to the United States on economic policies. Larry Fink talks to each president that has been in office about economics as well. So this seems like a conflict of interest because BlackRock's going to do very well on other countries expanding their capital markets. The advice he's likely giving the White House is that stablecoins will allow fintechs to purchase treasuries, bringing rates down to almost zero, or in some cases negative. And this is going to eliminate the need to have foreign holders of U.S. Treasuries. When you have industry at your fingertip and they're purchasing the Treasury market, well, who needs foreign governments?
It's shocking to me. As we move faster towards stablecoin and the digitization of currency, the role of the dollar is not going to be as important globally.
All right.
And these are the black swans. These are big macro things.
If you notice, he doesn't say the dollar is going away. He's saying it's going to have less of a role. Here's a couple of charts illustrating how important the U.S. dollar is to cross-border payments. And you can see that the U.S. dollar is the dominant currency. I want to point out that even in crypto, the US dollar is still the dominant currency. USDT and USDC make up for the majority of liquidity in the crypto ecosystem. And some may say, well, there's the Bitcoin pair. Well, the Bitcoin pair has rapidly dried up compared to what it was in 2017. That is why 2017 had an insane bull run. So in the full context, he's saying that protectionism, the tariffs, national debts and deficits all add into this bigger picture where this entire system is a fabric. And when people want to exit the US dollar, they can do so at the speed of the internet into a neutral asset.
And so the key is, we got to unlock private capital. I wrote this in an editorial in the FT a few weeks back. We got to unlock private capital. We need to, streamline permitting, and then I think we can grow because of the expertise of the United States. I think we have the potential of growing at 3%, and this is what I've just been pushing everybody. And I was in Japan last week. That was my message to the leadership of Japan. If you don't start growing at 2%, your deficits are going to be overwhelming you. And I could go to every country from Italy and on. This is a problem in so many countries, and we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out. But these are the big black swans that it's going to be harder for us to.
Larry Fink has been going on a global tour telling governments that they're going to need to boost GDP, and one of his recommendations is to deregulate. So we've seen this trend of regulations, of politics to regulate more and more and more and more. And now let's deregulate to push up GDP. You see how that works?
One of my most quotes that are repeated the most, I was on a panel in Washington with Jamie Dimon, and he was pissing all over Bitcoin. And I piled on and said, Bitcoin is the currency for money launderers and thieves. So I did say that in 2017.
Yep.
But during COVID, when I had more free time to think about, During
COVID, he had more free time to think about Bitcoin. So This man runs one of the largest banking institutions in the globe. He understands technology. That's how BlackRock came into the power and position that it's in. Yet he couldn't understand a distributed ledger. Are we to believe this?
He went on a journey, and I talked to a lot of people who were true believers. I met this woman from Afghanistan who uses Bitcoin to pay women workers in Afghanistan, and the Taliban, forbids women to work. And the banking system is controlled by the Taliban, but she was using Bitcoin to reward women.
I really doubt he cares about feminism. He is trying to bring the unbanked into the banking world because that's more profits for BlackRock to make.
And I was just learning all the different applications. And I came to the view that there's a lot of legitimacy with Bitcoin. Certainly the technology around, the blockchain around Bitcoin was pretty unrivaled, and it still is. And I became a believer in a, not like it's going to be a currency, but I believe that there's a role for it like digital gold. And
when Larry Fink first spoke about tokenizing debt to Andrew Sorkin's, he moved the market. Bitcoin shot up after that speech. He's really enthusiastic about tokenization.
Since most of BlackRock's business is based on long-termism, and I always raise the question, why would anybody invest in a 20 or 30-year outcome unless you believe the 20 or 30-year outcome is going to be good? Because if you didn't believe in over a 20, 30-year horizon that that those long-term investments would be better, you would keep all your money in a bank account or in a mattress. And so, all our business is based on hope. And I said, you know what, Bitcoin is a currency of fear. You own Bitcoin because you're frightened of your security in your country. You own Bitcoin because you're frightened of the debasement of your currency. What interesting, despite that it's illegal for Chinese to own Bitcoin, 20% of all Bitcoin ownership is Chinese.
Exactly, but you want to make sure no one hacks your wallet.
Yeah, I guess so. But so it's an evolution. And I'm proud of admitting that, okay, I was wrong. And now, to me, this is the experience. You grow and learn, and you make mistakes. And
he wants an investment based on hope. And at the same time, Bitcoin has these properties that offer hope. And that's where his dilemma is. Well, let me tell you something. That's not where his dilemma is. He has to say it this way in order to incite liquidity in the crypto ecosystem. He can't specifically say the protocols that will be used in order for tokenization to occur and pump up those prices. So what he's doing instead is saying that Bitcoin is the new digital gold, and this gives it his stamp of approval, and investors pile into the crypto space, pushing up prices and creating the liquidity that's required for the advanced tokenized products.
I mean, there's two, but they're all interconnected, and that's going to be AI and tokenization of financial assets. So digital assets, those are the two mega trends that are going to totally reshape financial services. I had a lunch today with a very prominent former finance minister, central bank, very prominent guy. And we were talking about, and he wrote a big paper on tokenization,
right,
and stablecoin. And he would say, he couldn't say it in his former role, but he would say it today as a private citizen. The banking system is being left behind in so many ways through technology. And you see what Nubank is doing in Brazil. Right. I mean, an extraordinary company, what they're doing, and now they're trying to do it in Mexico. Trade Republic in Germany. I mean, I could go on, all these digital platforms that are really reshaping. But also,
I find this hilarious. A central banker is saying that the banking system is being left behind, but a central bank is one of the regulatory agencies that prevent banks from innovating and using innovations. New bank that he was discussing is a RippleNet bank, and this is a bank that Warren Buffett invested in. Now, this is a neobank, and it is completely digital with AI capabilities.
And what we are seeing, just like we saw this whole convergence of passive and active, we're seeing a convergence now, because it'll be based on technology, which I'll get in a second, the convergence of private and public. And it's just, with better technology, investors are going to be able to pivot around the spectrum of public and privates. And that's going to be across the spectrum of just institutional, but it will, there's a lot of rumors there's going to be an executive order by the president to allow it in our 401ks. You're going to see that whole spectrum of public and privates across wealth too. And so it was very clear that as much as we thought we were growing, we felt that the opportunity in the markets was far greater and bigger, and we needed to bulk up scale.
The opportunity in the markets were far greater, and they needed to bulk up scale. So they're needing to invest more into the markets because there is opportunity in the markets to make more of a return than if they invested in-house. We're seeing deregulation come out of the White House involving retirement accounts and how they can manage retirement account money. These different rules and regulations were set up for a reason, and by deregulating, you're allowing the public to invest in things that were illiquid and set up for big guys to invest in. This is also why you're seeing news of real estate and public parks being sold. Now, what's going to happen is these are illiquid environments, so as money starts rushing into these illiquid markets, it's going to push up prices as high as possible, and by that time, they'll allow the public to invest in it. Right now, they're just talking about large institutions that manage money on the behalf of the public for their retirement accounts, but they're not talking about the public itself. There is over $35 trillion in America's retirement. Imagine 1% of that rolling into the crypto space, and that is $3.5 trillion. Now, it's important to note that market cap is much different than $3.5 trillion. When $3.5 trillion runs into the crypto world, it will melt up and change the game forever. All civilization has from time to time become a thin crust over a volcano of revolution. Thanks everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoy content like this, please consider joining my Patreon. Patreon has daily updates, weekly group calls, and much more.